All right. This is a call to order for the Hartford Board of School Directors on October 15th, 2025. It is 6:02 p.m. We're good. All right. No worries. That's okay. So the first order of the night is changes, additions, and approval of agenda. And let me just preface this with our chair is not able to be here this evening, so I am filling in as a facilitator role. We do have a quorum. We have Garrett online, Kevin is online, and Kathy and myself are here, so there is a quorum. And with that, are there any changes and additions and or approvals to the agenda? And there is. I move to change the
Mr.
presenters that are listed on this agenda as follows. Katie will be covering the district quality standards. Kathy will be covering the global governance BSR 1 monitoring report in Nancy's absence. And I also move that we move the executive session after the consent agenda. Are there any other requests? Coach?
If we can add the board member reports, um,
Add that after the policy work?
that would be great. That would make sense.
Okay, I'll cover all of that in just a second. Okay, to summarize, I move that we change the presenters for the district quality standards to Katie Sutton. The monitoring report BSR 1 will be covered by Kathy. The proposed executive session will be moved after the consent agenda, and the board member report section will happen after the policy work. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. That is, all those opposed, there's nobody there, so it's 4. Motion carries. Next up, governance process. We'll introduce you to Chris Hopkins, the new head of school at the Wilder School, and I think we're ready to go.
Thank you for inviting me.
Come on up to the mic. Yeah, otherwise they won't be able to hear you online. Yep.
Okay. Very pleased to be here. When I saw this posted a couple months ago, I've already told a number of people this, including the administration and those who interviewed me in the finalist interview. But I had no thoughts of returning to be a head of school at a third school. But as I researched the Wilder School, there could not have been a better next and what I hope is final chapter in my career. I served at 6 very, very different schools for over 3 decades. Started as an English teacher and a coach and a dorm parent. Most of the schools did have a boarding aspect to them. Most of them 70 boarding, 30 day. And I call them independent schools because even now when people hear private boarding school, they think of a elitist, wealthy set of students and families. And nowadays that may have been true in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, but now, much like colleges who are able to do so, if students, it's need blind, and if they're accepted, there is financial aid provided. And so the diversity is extraordinary. Now, the diversity of the schools was significant. I did serve at one school in Pennsylvania that was, I might say, like an Ivy League of boarding schools. But once again, the socioeconomic diversity and every other category diversity was extraordinary. But we were teaching thoroughbreds how to run this. The students had the natural academic, athletic, artistic, social, etc., potential, and it was just our job to find a way to help them maximize it. I also served at a very small school, which at the time, 25 years ago or so, neurodiversity was not something that was spoken about, and people were not aware of it anywhere near the way they are now. But now I look back and say that a good portion of those students were neurodiverse, and their families were seeing them disappear in large public school classrooms and sitting in the back row. The teachers didn't know who they were, and they were just kind of cruising, and so they were enrolled in this school, which was very small and very small faculty to student ratio, and we knew them well. I also I taught in England for a year, and then a school in Maine for 11 years. That was my first head of school position, and it was a town. It is a town academy. The town academies in Vermont are St. Johnsbury Academy, Linden Institute, Burton. There used to be lots of them in New England, and now there are only 10 in Maine. A couple in New Hampshire that are more public, structured in terms of governance than the other two states, and then there are 5 or so, I think, in Vermont. And the biggest difference in all of them is how they're funded, but I won't go into that. But each of them was founded to be an independent school to serve as the high school for the district. Our school over 150 years ago, but there's a school in Maine that might be close to like 275 years old, amazingly. And so all of the 8th graders from the middle school came to that school, and so there was a special ed department. There were probably 40 or 50% of the students who qualified for free and reduced lunch. This was not Kennebunk, Maine, and this was not the mountains of Maine. This was south central Maine in a town that used to be thriving with industry, and like so many towns across America in the 70s and 80s, that changed. And I tell this story, and it's a little hyperbolic, but I arrived, and I had been told that the school was in tough shape as far as morale went, and that the town was not happy with the school. There was an unfortunate placement of a head before me, and alumni, schools, independent schools do rely on the philanthropic generosity of alumni who recognize that everything they experienced was thanks to the philanthropic sacrifice of those who came before. And there were several very, very supportive alumni who were starting to think about supporting other nonprofits. But it wasn't until I saw students and faculty and staff and administrators walking around campus where I saw the real dysfunction. It was literally and figuratively people walking, looking down at their feet, just mechanically going from one thing to another. And so immediately launched into a meeting of all of the adults, and I said, it's dysfunctional, and here's what I'm seeing. And I had one veteran teacher at the school say, you can't change school culture. It is what it is. And so I put him in charge of being the head of the culture change committee. And when he was done with that, he thanked me and he said that was the best experience I've ever had, and we got to work on that. And I'm proud to say, not alone. Everyone there was very hungry, just like I've discovered at the Wilder School, very hungry to hear new ideas and to move the school forward. But I think it could have been Thanksgiving my first year, and I always came out of my office when there were students walking when the bell rings, and they were headed off for Thanksgiving vacation. So I was in the hall saying goodbye and have a good vacation. And I said this to one student who I'll call Emily, and I said, Emily, have a good weekend. And she just stopped with her back to me, and the dean of student life was next to me, and he had grown up in the town, he'd gone to school, and then he'd returned, and he'd been working there a long time. So he knew the community. And she just turned, and she turned her head and looked at me, didn't say a word, but there was just something on her face, and she turned and then walked out, and I said, Tom, what was that all about? And he said, I know where she lives, and I know what her parents are like, and what her world is like. this, our school, is where she gets literal and figurative warmth and love and food and is nourished. And right then and there, I just committed myself to committing all of us at the school to focusing on that population of students and creating programs for them. And I'm not big on mantras or sayings, but I did develop, I'm sure it's not unique, but culture before curriculum. You cannot learn in a classroom, on the playing field, anywhere in a school, until an individual student feels safe, cared for, and heard and known. And that's what we talked about doing and worked towards it. And we developed programs for those who aren't in, they weren't the athletes and they weren't the taking the three APs and in the plays and so on. We made sure we took care of them, but we knew they'd be okay if we did our jobs. It was the group that had felt disenfranchised and othered that was really suffering, and that required, in some cases, disciplinary action that we made sure was uh, there was a consequence, but that wasn't the important part. It's what what are you going to do with this experience? I would tell students, you're sitting across from someone who made more mistakes than he can remember by the time he was your age, and they were the making of me. And it's difficult to measure. Yes, you can measure test scores, PSATs, and so on, college acceptances, but for a school person, the measurement is watching a student walk across the stage and receive their diploma, knowing that if they hadn't had that disciplinary issue in freshman year and then in junior year, and we hadn't provided the supports needed, which is what Wilder does, is finding the supports that are needed, then that student would not be walking across with a diploma and a plan moving forward in their post-secondary world. And I was there for 11 years. It was time for me to move on. And there comes a time where you've kind of used up your bag of tricks and you say, I think it's somebody else's turn. And so I came down to Springfield to be a interim head at a school that served inner city students. And its mission was to provide them with an independent school sort of experience where the classes are small, the teachers know them. And I knew there were a lot of reasons that that school might not make it financially for more than 3 or 4 years, but I was going to give it a try. The one thing, silly me, that I didn't foresee was a global pandemic, which happened to us like it happened everywhere, and we scrambled and we got remote learning going as best we could. But as I moved on and took a planned break for 2 years, that school unfortunately hasn't made it, but there is a new owner of it, so I hope it does, because it really did serve a population that itself was neurodiverse, because poverty causes the brain to develop in a way that mirrors very much ASD and ADHD students. So I see this posting. I'm sorry. In the meantime, in Springfield, there's a man that I got to know and be friends with. I've told people that he was the sound and pyrotech person for KISS during KISS's world tour. So if you want to hear about John Robeson, this man who at early 40s was discovered that he was diagnosed with Asperger's, and I got to know him, which wasn't easy, because he really doesn't look in the eye, and he really doesn't understand tone of voice and subtlety and facial expression and so on. But I started reading his books, and at one point I said, my oldest. And that resulted in me having lots of fabulous conversations with my oldest, who is trans. And I told John Robeson that he was trans, and he said, well, that doesn't surprise me. And the way he put it, I've always remembered this, is individuals on the spectrum are 5 to 7 times less likely to identify strongly as one gender or another. And he said, take me, for example. I grew up knowing I was a man and that I was supposed to pair with a woman, but I don't think I have the same sort of feelings that a neurotypical man feels towards somebody to whom they're attracted. So I then accepted a position at a program in Lee, Massachusetts that has young, fairly high functioning young adults, 18 to 24, ASD, ADHD. They live in apartments with no RAs or anything, and they do life skills in the apartment. They take modules in executive functioning regarding careers, academics, social skills, and then they go out and they do internships, ultimately with a goal of getting a paid job. And they take they want to, they take the second semester of their first year classes at a local community college, classes that are high interest, low risk, just to work on their executive function. I was there for 2 years, and then I saw the posting for Wilder, and it just was the next perfect step for me. And I have been welcomed with a warm embrace from the district's administration to everyone at Wilder. And I will tell you that every principal, head of school will say, and you all heard this, that we have the most dedicated staff in the world. And oftentimes that's not necessarily the case, but it's the right thing to say. In this case, I don't say things I don't mean. The staff there to a person is committed in some cases in a little bit further than they should be, and I see the need to kind of set the boundaries because they just are so desperate to find a way to help, and that's a lot better than the opposite, and that is there are people who you have to push to feign commitment, and I think I'm on my 10th day, and I am meeting individually with every employee. And I was asked during the finalist interview over a Zoom meeting, what will you do when you get to the Wilder School? What change? I said, I have no idea. I just need to come and spend time learning the culture, learning how things are done. And you all, and in these meetings, I'm telling each individual, you are my mentor. And I mean that because I have so much to learn. The students are familiar to me. They're younger. They're more challenged than any that I've worked with, at least in a group. The public school aspect of it, a great deal to learn, and I'm going to rely on all of you. And so I'm having these meetings, and I just sit, listen, ask questions, and ask them to tell me what I need to know. And cliche though it is, I know that there's a lot of things that I don't know, so tell me what I don't know. And anytime in the future, if I'm missing something, tell me. And people have been really open and very positive, and I hope to wrap those up. And then we will, as a group, talk about the report that was done after a consultant visit to the school the past summer, and the whole the faculty, the staff, the administrators will, as a group, discuss what those findings were and what they agree with, what they disagree with, what has already been done, because there's been incredible progress at the Wilder School already. I mean, I'm just arriving at a great place to see if I can find ways to make it greater. And then we will put together some sort of strategic plan that is achievable and that is active and a working document moving forward. So I thank everybody, and if you have questions, I would be happy to field them.
Thank you for sharing your experience, and we're excited to have you here and champion those students. Any questions from the board? Online, Coach or Garrett?
No questions. Welcome, and yeah, thank you for the intro. And we're lucky to have you.
I'm luckier to be here.
All right.
am still moving into my house and have to go to BJ's and very other. So Katie did very kindly say I could slink out of the room at whatever time I chose. So you'll observe.
This is a perfect time to hit BJ's. Thank you.
Yep, that's it. Thank you very much for being here.
All right, thank you. Moving on, our next section is the middle school new student transition process presented by Cody Tancredi, the principal, and Emily Marcia, the assistant principal. Just Cody tonight.
Sorry, everyone. Hi, everyone. I don't like having my back to people, so hi, how are you? I'm Cody Tancredi. I'm the principal. It's my second year at Hartford Middle School. Really off to a great start. I'm going to start with a story tonight, and then I'll kind of lead into what our goal is and continues to be this year. But we'll start with the story. It was late in the school year when a new student arrived at Hartford Memorial Middle School. His name was Jordan, and on paper, he looked like any other student ready to start fresh at a new school. The registration forms were filled out neatly, his emergency contacts were listed, and his academic records showed that he had attended school regularly. Nothing about the paperwork hinted at what Jordan had been through or what he might need. When Jordan walked through the doors that first morning, everything felt unfamiliar. The faces, the hallways, the routines. He was placed directly into classes, and teachers did their best to welcome him while juggling the many demands of a busy school day. What no one realized was that Jordan struggled to read and had been receiving intensive intervention at his previous school. The reason for his move wasn't something anyone at Hartford Middle School knew either. Jordan had recently been removed from his home by DCF and was now living with a family member he barely knew. Beneath the quiet and uncertainty, he carried feelings of loss, fear, and confusion. Within days, Jordan began leaving ELA class without permission. His frustration turned into behavioral referrals, and what staff saw as defiance was in reality a student who felt lost and misunderstood. After several weeks of seeing these patterns continue, the school created an alternative schedule in an effort to keep Jordan engaged. The plan included tutoring, shortened days, and some time off-site to provide a smaller, more supportive environment. However, Jordan didn't like the new schedule and began refusing to attend. His absences increased, and soon his connection to the school began to fade. Eventually, Jordan left Hartford Middle School to enroll in another middle school out of district and moving in with a different family member. So that story actually included real events that have happened even in my time in this district. And I tell the story to kind of make the next part of this more real because we're really focused on this piece of belonging in our district and specifically at Hartford Middle School. It's been our goal for the last 2 years. And this idea that belonging just happens is something that we're trying to kind of drill down into and talk more about where it happens and our systems that we have in our district that unintentionally other people. And our registration process and onboarding for our new students is something that we decided to focus on. So this summer, we'll kind of jump into the next slide. Awesome. This summer, Krista Mock, Carrie Russell, and Emily Marcy, our new associate principal at the middle school, I had this idea for this new transition process for new students who arrive at Hartford Middle School. It came from just some experiences similar to the ones I just read, but really, how do we slow down the process when we get new students who arrive and learn some things about them before we just throw them into a class? So the people in our district are brilliant, and I will rarely work alone on something like this. So we got together over the summer, we started taking notes and came up with a pretty good draft of what it could look like. And then the school year starts and everyone knows how that kind of goes. So I slowly started like chipping away at it, and one night I got some motivation and we had some new students coming in a couple weeks. Well, are we a month into the school year? So yeah, we had a new student coming in, and I was like, man, we really could use this new routine. And so one night I just stayed up and just cranked out some work and sent it to our team. And I'll echo what was said about the Wilder School, and we have a staff who is just eager and ready to do whatever they need to do to make the best experience for our students. So when I shared the document, Anne Marie Hall, our counselor, Emily, a couple others, I opened it up a little bit later in the school day, and there was just people editing it and making comments, and, oh, this looks great, let's use it tomorrow. And in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm not ready for this, but okay, let's do it. Sometimes that's the best way to kind of figure things out. So we call it the New Student Transition Overview Form. On the screen, which it's behind you, you probably can't see it, but it says be here, be you, belong. I threw that up there just so you know that that's kind of our new saying at Hartford Middle School, and we're really focused on systems and belonging. We're focused on advisory this year because we feel that that's where connections happen, and I just wanted to put a plug in that we set this goal last year of belonging more in general. This year we're diving into like specific systems, and we'll continue that work because I think it's a part of everything we do. And at the district level, we got to spend some time on Friday also really looking at taking a closer look at belonging and ways that we can improve it district-wide. So. Cool. So when a new student arrives at Hartford Middle School, it initiates like a new system, a procedure. We thought about who is responsible for each step of the procedure and what we want to know. So we want to know some more information other than what our registration process tells us about students. So when they fill out that first form, it gives us basic information, but what do we really need to know so that we can provide the best experience for our students? The first template did not have the workflow. I got to give credit to Emily, my associate principal, on that. She went through and added step by step who's responsible, where do you pass the document to, who do you share it to next, so that it's passed on to the next team member. And this is a 1 to 3 day process for a new student who arrives. They might not join a team until potentially 3 days into the week, their first week. So when Deb Wager, or the admin assistant, receives that initial registration, they're going to fill out this first page. So it'll tell you the basic contact information, the grade, all those things that you see on the screen. And the next step would be to pass it to our counselors. The counselors will do this anyways, but this kind of documents it. So we have a team model at the middle school. For those of you who don't know, we have 4 teams. The teachers on that team will stay with the students for 3 years. Before they get to the team, oftentimes when students arrive, they just start in on a class and the paperwork doesn't come in until it could be weeks before we know anything about what they did at their previous school. Sometimes we get lucky and it comes in the day of, or maybe that week. But sometimes they'll start class and we don't know anything other than what we met at the door. So this is a way, so the counselors will do the next step. They call home and they ask some questions that really get to know more personalized details about the student and the family. What kind of learner are they? What do they like to do? Maybe there's some history from the parent, that kind of that street data that we didn't know about the student that could help us connect, right? Build a relationship with the student. That's what this information is. And we've used this, and I will tell you, I just read some to Katie and Aaron about our new one of these that we filled out. The information we got from it was so helpful. It's already working. It's already making a difference. The counselors then pass it to our interventionists, who are going to do some screeners with students. While they're doing this, mind you, they're not just sitting in an office waiting for the next meeting with an adult. They are attending classes, related arts classes. They have a schedule that we built at the end. I think I put it in there. But we have model schedules for 6 through 8, depending on which grade they're in. There's already a schedule set for that student. So we know we don't have to make up a day for them. It's already made. The screeners, we're using, I believe it's Dibbles, because there's no window for it. You can do it whenever. It's like a 18 to 20 minute test, and it gives you just an idea where they're at academically. We did, so math, ELA. We also have a category if the student is English is their second language. We also have that, which triggers a whole different response and pathway for who we're going to contact and who gets that work. We really thought about all students when we made this. So that will all be documented in here. Are they at benchmark? What were their scores? And this is, again, in 3 days. The next part on here, which I've already made notes after we did it the first time, that we're going to move this to probably in the beginning of our process. The Heart group is a student group that's focused on belonging at Hartford Middle School. It's run by students. I'll help set the agenda, but they run the meetings. They're telling me what we want to make for changes in our school. They're doing surveys with students. They are helping with advisory. It's an amazing group of students who's really eager to make some changes. So we'll have students give tours, answer questions. There'll be a panel if that new student wants to ask some questions to other students. I know that students will answer things a little differently when it's me in the room, so I would probably just step out for a second, let them talk it out. You know, what is Hartford Middle School like? And what do you want to know? Where's the cool places to go at recess? Like, what are the games to play? Things like that I can't really answer. We're really hoping to build up this like student responsibility, similar to what the high school does with their what's the name of it? What is Link Crew? Link Crew. We're going to try to build some student leadership as well. Interesting. So here's the schedules that we made up. So you can kind of see Anne-Marie has this mind where she can create schedules like this. I'm really grateful for her. So at the end of the process, this entire document is brought by the counselor to the team meeting, and before they start taking core classes, this is all read to the team and they have a copy of it. So they have all this new information about a student who just arrived, and they're ready to start in a place where maybe we understand more about them, we know where they're at academically and socially, and they're more ready to start their year with us. It doesn't matter when they enter either. We also thought about how this could be used during chronic absenteeism. Let's say they're out for a few weeks, even at the high school level, and they return to school. Oftentimes the best thing we can do for a student is to put them right back into the class. They're behind in their work, the anxiety increases, and unfortunately the next thing is that they're not coming to school the next day. So how do we slow that down, catch them up? It's a process like this. The same thing when a student might leave our district, because unfortunately that's going to happen. People move, there's things out of our control. We have this document for the next school, because I wish that I had this information when they arrive. We have this to give to the next school, because this idea that we are all these separate schools, and there are students, they're all of our students, and we can help other schools as well. So I think that this is a good start. It's going to get better, and we are already making edits to it as we use it. But the end story for Jordan it is like this. When Jordan joined Hartford Middle School, he was met with a warm welcome from both staff and students. From the very first day, it was clear that Hartford Middle School takes time to truly get to know each student as both learner and an individual. Before Jordan's first day, our school counselors reached out to his family to learn more about his interests, strengths, and needs. This helped the team build a more complete picture of who Jordan is and how we could best support his transition. Jordan spent his first few days at the middle school meeting key staff members, visiting a variety of classes, and connecting with students. And during this time, he also gathered information about where he was academically and socially so we could tailor and support him at the start. A group of Hartford Middle School students helped Jordan to get oriented, answering questions about daily life at the school, showing him around the building, and sharing what it means to be a student in this community. The peer connection helped Jordan quickly feel a sense of belonging. Because of this thoughtful transition process, Jordan started on his team feeling confident and known. His family shared that they felt heard, supported, and welcomed. Today, Jordan continues to thrive at Hartford Middle School and looks forward to coming to school each day. So hopefully, that's where we end the story, with more stories like that. And anyways, thank you. If you have any questions, or you want to visit our school, want to come to just walk the halls, let me know. always open to things like that. But thanks for letting me share. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks, Cody. Any questions from the board?
Not a question, just a comment, Cody. Please share our kudos to the rest of the team. And I mean the whole team being at your next staff meeting. The change is tremendous and it's noticeable. And we just wanted to make sure that you were aware. Not that you're not. So thank you.
Thanks, Coach. Thank you again, Cody. Next up, we have the student attendance procedure presented by Suzy Walker, the school nurse coordinator, with some Q&A by the board.
Hello, how are y'all?
Good. How are you?
I think y'all had a reading of the protocol at the last meeting, is that right?
We did, yep.
Okay, so I did make a few little changes and gave that corrected copy to Miss Nancy. And
Okay.
I think she was gonna pass that along to y'all, she had said to me. Did y'all get
We'll make sure we'll get it. I don't think we've gotten
Okay.
it yet, but she might have been a little busy.
Yes. So I think y'all had some questions, if you want to start there and then I can
really-
elaborate.
So it was me that brought up the concern of really just trying to keep the procedure outside of the policy, because for the policy, it has to get warned and voted upon. And then I have zero issues with the procedure after talking to Katie. And what that does is it also allows us to change the procedure if we ever needed to without it going to the
Right.
board, because it's the procedure of the schools. So I totally have no more questions.
Oh,
If
okay.
that's, because what we're doing is I'm guessing that we took the procedure out, and that will be its own document, and the policy will be the recommended policy from the V.S.A. No other questions.
Okay.
Yeah. No.
I think Miss Nancy had said that there was some question about us receiving documentation from doctors' offices.
Yeah,
the
so
children had not been
that was the
seen.
concern that I brought up as well. Was my student, for example, missed the entire first week with COVID. Actually, both of my students did. So my concern was, does that put them right on the list right out of the gate because they're over that threshold? And then the other concern was, does a COVID test? I mean, there's no guidance right from the government anymore, and as our family motto is, we're not going to send sick kids to school.
Right. And we appreciate that.
Thanks. So really my concern was, does it, put other families in a tough spot if they have to go get a doctor's note when in the event that it's, COVID or something that where we don't really want
Right.
the sickness in the school, but in the event of, potential just truancy and those issues, that I think
Right.
it's a fine line. But that was my question.
So I used to be a pediatric nurse in an office down south where I'm from before I came here. And so a lot of my day, besides giving shots and being known as the shot lady, was doing telephone triage with families who had sick children who didn't necessarily need to come in for an office visit, but they made contact with us about why, what to do for the children, how long they should be out of school, and that sort of thing. And so sometimes we would have to write notes for the school to say, well, we've advised this family to keep the child home another 48 hours. We didn't necessarily see the child, but we had given medical advice based on conversations with the parents. So that's really all we're looking for here. It's not necessarily that they have to go to the doctor, but if they have 3 days or more consecutive days of absence, then we feel like it would be beneficial, not only because it's best practice that a parent should be contacting a doctor if a child is that ill, but also it just helps us to know what's going on with the child, how we can support them when they do come back. Sometimes children walk in the building, they've been absent for 5 days, and I've had no idea they had surgery because the parent hasn't reached out, or no one, the teacher might know, but it didn't make it to the nurse, and then it turns out that we need to make accommodations in the building for the child to get around. So if we just have a better handle on why the children are out for prolonged periods, Some of that can just be a screenshot of an email conversation that they've had with the doctor's office. That's easy to do on MyDH and all of the medical portals. Parents send us screenshots all the time for doctor's notes about no PE for this or that sort of thing. So it's just an effort to extend that to cover prolonged absences. It doesn't necessarily have to be a doctor visit. That's up to the provider to decide. But we're just asking that parents make the effort to connect with a provider when there's a prolonged absence.
Okay.
And certainly attendance is a minefield. I mean, we do actually have to classify things as excused and unexcused, but best practice thinking and research in the last several years really looks at absences as a whole. So it doesn't matter why you've missed 25 days. Maybe you had surgery and then you had the flu. That's certainly reasonable that you might miss that time, but it is still 25 days of learning that you've missed. So current practice really asks schools to look at just the number of absences and not whether it's excused or unexcused. That being said, there's a huge difference in someone just not coming to school because they have school avoidance, they are having peer issues, there's something going on at home, we don't know those things, and someone who's had orthopedic surgery and can't come back for 2 weeks, or COVID for a week. So it's just really an effort to keep us in the loop so that we know how to support the family. So in a perfect world, maybe we don't look at excused and unexcused, but the fact of the matter is we do have to give some weight to that. So,
Okay.
know if that makes sense or if I need to elaborate.
No, it does.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board?
Nope.
No, I think it was good that we clarified the procedures versus the policy being the overarching piece, because sometimes without that clarity, things can get confusing. So thanks, Jeremy, for pulling that together.
No worries. Thank you, Suzy, for
And as we know,
straight.
we could have some other mass health issue that requires then more policies from the state. So I think keeping it as a procedure makes sense because then we can turn on a dime and fix things if we need to. So
Okay.
I appreciate y'all listening.
Thank you, Suzy.
Thank you.
I appreciate you being here. Now we're up to the fiscal year 26 student enrollment count overview by Jacob Vizina.
Okay. So I'll keep it brief, but basically we have the October 1st counts for this year. And Superintendent Sutton had asked me to share with over the last 5 years. So I've kind of shared the graph of each school in the enrollment. As I always like to point the caveats out. This is good for October 1st and October 1st only, one day every year. And the other thing that I just want to point out is all this data pulls into the long-term weighted average that the state then divvies up and tells us what our long-term weighted average number is. Given that, different grades, ages, and needs get different weights. Aaron and I are actually going to attend a webinar on that tomorrow because I think there's going to be some changes to that. So looking forward to that.
All right. Thank you, Jacob.
May I ask a question just
Yes.
to further clarify for the public who might not know what long-term weighted average means or how that works? Would you mind just giving some examples, Jacob, of how that operates so that others have an understanding of what might constitute a different weight in that number?
There's different weights for English as a second language versus pre-K or secondary has a different weight than elementary, and that's all the state that's developed those weights. Keeping in mind that we used to be on the equalized pupil, and then we moved to the long-term weighted average, and really the only difference was the change in weights with the former to the later now. So.
And in terms of just a quick summary of what our numbers look like over the last 4 years?
I mean, overall, we've stayed fairly on par. I mean, kids age out, so, they go up through the grades. 23 and 24, we had some increases. Last year we had a decrease. This year we have a decrease. But I mean, overall, I don't think there's any one particular trend at a school. The one thing I did notice is that our community pre-K numbers are down, and really that's in part to the regulations that the state has, where all these independent facilities, they're required to have a licensed teacher. So a lot of them are having trouble getting that licensed teacher to then operate that community program. So thus, we don't have as many of our parents taking advantage of that program.
Okay, thank you. Next up is a fun one for me. It's the board response to the Valley News article regarding redistricting. And so I put some notes together to hopefully stifle some speculation and set the record straight. So this initially started with an invitation from our state representative Burrows out of West Windsor, who is also on the Windsor Southeast Supervisory Union Board. It also included Mountain View Supervisory Union, and Hartford School District was invited. The meeting was held on September 18th with Coach Christie and myself attending. There was no quorum present. And what was discussed during that meeting was really just the likelihood of our schools being paired with each other in the event that Act 73 does move forward. Our shared focus on excellence in schools and providing for our students align, as do most of our policies. The outcome of that meeting was a decision for a letter to be written by the members of those who attended to show the redistricting task force our willingness to work together and potentially form a larger unit, again, only if Act 73 moves forward. That letter was delivered in person by a member of the Mountain View School Supervisory Union to the task force on September 29th. Then there was an article in the Valley News on 10/4 where a member of the Mountain View Supervisory Union was quoted in it stating that it would be a reasonable choice for the unions and district to come to center around Woodstock because of prior invested millions of dollars in planning and permitting, but it was not discussed at that meeting, nor would I have agreed with it. I think that the intent that we all share here is that we would like our students to remain right here. So I'll open it up to the board for other comments regarding that, if any are necessary. And the map that was discussed in said article was actually in reference to the map that the redistricting task force released in the Valley News on October 1st. No map was discussed as part of the discussion on the 18th of September. I was quoted as being excited or as thinking that map was promising because it centered around this building that we're sitting in right now. So, any other comments from the board members?
Just thanks for saying what you said, Jeremy. To clarify everything, I've received some comments from people in the public, to which I've encouraged them to come to board meetings and not necessarily take everything they read in the Valley News as the only believable thing out there, the only source of news. Because even though the Valley News tends to put truth in there, they do seem to omit some things that are rather important. So I would agree with everything that you said. I think I had some comments last week when we talked about you guys going to the meeting that it's a tough pill to swallow just in general, that there's a chance that our kids or my kids may not go to Hartford High School. But if we did have to combine with anybody, I think it makes sense for our school to be the center of that, given just our geographic location, the tech center, and all of that. So thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
Uh, as a participant in these meetings from the beginning, um, uh, Representative Burrows and I had been in discussions about getting ahead of the statewide discussion, not just because of our uh, other responsibilities as elected representatives for this region, but also because we both serve on school boards. And it only made sense that we take advantage of that opportunity to start the discussion early, rather than be in a position where we're told where we were going to go or what we were going to do or what we were going to be. And I think that Jeremy's comments were very well taken. There was no discussion at even at the initial meetings, about where the center, of the charge would come from. Uh, it was all about this group of schools and districts coming together to start a discussion around anchoring, a jurisdiction. And it only made sense, just looking at the history of change in the state regarding districts, that one of the things that has gone unchanged for over 50 years in all of these discussions are the tech center regions. So that's part of that discussion that we've had even in the legislature, and I think I'm hoping that it has some relevance in the rest of the discussion. So that's just my take.
Thanks, Coach. To add, I would say write your representatives and ask them to uh, request to appeal Act 73 personally in the next session. So I really hope that it doesn't move forward, or if it does, it benefits Hartford. Moving on, no more word. Okay. So we're going to move on to the district quality standards of rubrics and self-assessment. Overview and introduction presented by Katie.
Thank you very much. 16 V.S.A. 165 lays out the Agency of Education's responsibility for ensuring that each Vermont student is afforded substantially equal access to a high-quality education. So the way in which they are moving forward with that is that the agency recently revised the education quality standards, which went into effect in July of 2025. The district quality standards also came into effect at that time. And so what we need to do is take part in a self-assessment. So this is a district quality standards beta test self-assessment is what they're titling it, and it's really piloting these rubrics in order to assess the quality of our district. And it should be noted that the education quality standards are evaluated separately and submitted to the state. So that's where you would see the way in which we have evaluated ourselves in terms of like our curriculum and our multi-tiered system of support, and et cetera. These rubrics are more related to the district level. What the charge is that the window of this district quality standard beta test opened today, and the district has until November 21st to submit. The board is responsible for the governance section of this self-assessment. So the idea is to bring these rubrics to the board, and the next couple of meetings before the 21st, the board will review these rubrics, and in between meetings come to the next meeting prepared to talk about where you all assessed yourselves in terms of governance priorities, governance protocols, and governance processes. So those are the three aspects of the governance section whereby the board would have a lot of input in determining where you would assess yourselves, and then the district, through me as the agent, would then submit that as a section in the overall beta test for submission on November 21st. So this is just an overview to provide you with the information that you'll need to be able to review those closely in between meetings, and then come prepared to share your self-assessments in the next couple of meetings, and then I will submit this section on behalf of the board by the 21st.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Not for me.
All right. Thank you, Katie. Moving on to policy work. We will now, first up is the approval of the board member conflict of interest that was warned originally and first read on October 1st. I move that we accept the conflict of interest policy first warned for the October 1st board meeting. Do I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. That's 4 ayes. All those opposed? There's none online. So the motion carries. The conflict of interest policy is approved on October 15th. Next up is the first reading of the options-based response to violent intruder drills, fire drills, and emergency preparedness policy. And I will go along with that. It is the policy of the Hartford School District to require each school site to conduct age-appropriate options-based response to violent intruder drills and fire drills, and to adopt and maintain an all-hazards emergency operations plan as part of the district's overall school safety plan. Definitions. 1. Option-based response to violent intruder drill. For the purpose of this policy, options-based response to violent intruder drill means that there are different actions educators and students can take if confronted by a violent intruder. 2. School site, school buildings operated by the school district. Administrative responsibilities. The superintendent or designee shall ensure that 1. Each school site in the district conducts age-appropriate options-based response to violent intruder drills in the fall and spring semester of each academic year. The district must evaluate which approach is best and adapt that approach to the developmental level of their students, including for students with disabilities, language barriers, and mobility needs. 2. Option-based response to violent intruder drills are conducted following the guidance issued by the Vermont School Safety Center and the Vermont School Crisis Planning Team, which includes trauma-informed best practices for implementing options-based response to violent intruder drills. 3. Parents and guardians are notified not later than 1 school day before options-based response to violent intruder drill is conducted. 4. Completion of the options-based response to violent intruder drills is reported to the Agency of Education in a format approved by the Secretary. 5. Fire drills are conducted following current guidance issued by the Vermont School Safety Center and the Vermont School Crisis Planning Team. 6. On or by July 1st, 2024, an all-hazards emergency operations plan is adopted and maintained for each school site that is at least as comprehensive as the template maintained by the Vermont School Safety Center. This plan must be reviewed and updated annually and in collaboration with local emergency first responders and local emergency management officials. And next up, we have the monitoring report for BSR1 Global Governance, which is now presented by Kathy Lemire. It's in here if you want it.
Yeah, I have it here. So this was fairly straightforward, as the policy is one sentence long. Policy BSR1 is Global Governance Management Connection. And the policy statement is the board's sole official connection to the operational organization, its achievements, and conduct will be through the superintendent of schools. So I interpret that on behalf of the board to mean the superintendent is the board's only direct employee and primary link between governance and management. The board provides direction to the district only through policy and evaluation of the superintendent. All accountability for district operations, staff performance, and student outcomes is channeled through the superintendent. And this interpretation is considered reasonable and measurable when communication and directives to staff occur through the superintendent, and the superintendent is evaluated annually on district performance and policy compliance. I found our compliance status to be in compliance with this policy, with the key indicators being that the board has maintained clear role delineation with no direct management or supervision of staff other than the superintendent. The superintendent provides regular reports, examples, updates at board meetings, annual evaluations, and progress on strategic goals. An annual superintendent evaluation has been conducted in accordance with board policy and contract terms. There are no significant exceptions to have been identified, and our continuous improvement is to continue annual review of governance management boundaries during board retreats or policy monitoring sessions, include training for new board members on communication protocols and chain of command, and ensure superintendent evaluation remains aligned with board goals and district outcomes. Pretty straightforward one.
All right.
Any questions?
Any questions from the board? Thank you,
Nope.
Kathy. Next up is the board member report. Coach, you want to take the lead on that one?
Okay. Basically, it's just to clarify some of the topics we've been, working on in between board meetings. I think there's a pretty clear picture with redistricting that's been, a current activity. The policy work that's going on is updated regularly as well. An additional piece that we've been participating in with the Vermont School Boards Association is policy governance training. There's a series of 8 meetings that they're meeting trainings where we've been offered an opportunity to work with a consultant that was hired by the Vermont School Boards Association. As I recall, the number of us that were at the last training, there were at one point there were over 100 board members from across the state, at that training. The next one coming up is tomorrow evening, and that's just the current activities, and then the work that I'm involved with on behalf of the board is the financial constraints work that we do, working with our chief financial officer to ensure that our operations are maintained in an effective and efficient manner. And kudos to the office for keeping us in good stead as the audits show. So that's the current update.
Thank you, Coach. Anything else from any other board members? If not, that'll move us to our public comments section. The board welcomes public comments in order to accommodate as many community members' voices as possible. Anyone making a comment will be given 2 minutes to speak. This is not time for a discussion, but the board is interested in hearing comments, concerns, and suggestions from the public. And I'll just add that please state your name and town of residence if you'd like to comment, and refrain from personal attacks and be respectful to all members of our community. Anybody online? person, but not a question. So, all right, silence is golden. Oh. Okay. Moving forward.
Hold on. Heidi has her hand raised.
Oh, okay. Heidi? Hold on 1 second. Can I do it? She's still muted. There you go. Heidi, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. This is Heidi Dutra, White River Junction. One quick announcement. I've been reaching out to the select board, the school board, and Kathy about the outreach meetings. The next outreach meeting is October 23rd at 5:30 at Hartford Police Department. This is a invitation to all of you, including the public, to maybe attend. We have some very crucial situations in town that I think need to be addressed. That's one thing I'd like to address tonight. The other situation that I'd like to address tonight is the Hartford Memorial Middle School just had a water main break on October 7th. I imagine everyone sitting in the room tonight is aware of that. My concerns are the lead in the water at the middle school that we've been having water testing for. I would like to know when the next water testing is to occur at the middle school, if anyone has any ideas.
Unfortunately, I don't think anybody here does, and our facilities director is not here tonight.
So if I may, could I put a suggestion in that we do a water test in the near future? Because that's an old pipe going in from the road to the building. And for the security and safety of the faculty, the staff, and the students, I think we should do a test of the water quality to see what the levels are since that old pipe was removed and replaced. I did a little research myself, and lead faucets, because Jonathan made a statement at one of the past meetings that the lead faucets were at fault, not the piping or the water main, that the faucets were at fault. And I did a little research and looked into it, and lead faucets were removed from manufacturing and banned from the market back in 1986. And the EPA removed lead pipes, and they banned them from use in existing buildings being in renovation back in 1991. And this is why I think that lead pipe may have been a big part of the problem at the middle school. So that was my comment for tonight, and I really think that we should look into having the middle school water supply retested. So thank you for allowing me to speak, and I wish you all a nice evening.
Thank you,
Thank
Heidi.
you.
Are there any more comments? All right. That moves us along to the consent agenda. Are there any appointments, resignations, or retirements?
We have one retirement effective June 30th of 2026, and that is Hartford High School science educator David McCoy.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda that includes the retirement as well as the meeting minutes from the October 1st board meeting?
So moved. Oh, sorry.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4 yeses. And now I have the motion prepared. We're going to probably go into executive session. I move to find that premature general public knowledge regarding labor relations places the board at a substantial disadvantage because it would disclose negotiation strategies regarding labor relations agreements. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 That's 4. I also move to enter, so I now move to enter executive session for the purpose of discussing labor relations agreements with employees under Title I, V.S.A. Section 313A1, with an invitation to Jacob V.S.A. and Katie Sutton. We will go into executive session at 7:13. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we are going to go to executive session as of 7:13 p.m. All right. The board exited executive session at 8 p.m. No action was taken. Our next board meeting will be held as of this time, November 5th, 2025. And now we'll do the meeting evaluation.
Board meeting monitoring. The board was prepared for the meeting, satisfactory. The board's time was spent on ends, not means, satisfactory. Each board member was given opportunity to participate, satisfactory. Board treated all persons with courtesy and fairness, satisfactory. Board adhered to Robert's Rules of Order, satisfactory. Board adhered to its adopted governance style. It emphasized outward vision. It encouraged diversity in viewpoints. It exercised strategic leadership, not administrative detail. It maintained distinction between board and staff roles. It used collective decision-making. It looked to the future, all satisfactory. I have no comments.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
That needs no second. We are adjourned.
Night all.
Right.